Okay, so 2 weeks ago, or about 2 weeks ago, a film called Dreams of Violets premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival. It was a 75-minute feature about the massacre of Iranian civilians in January. It was built from journalistic reports and eyewitness accounts. A film that, until very recently, would never have been made. It was made by two brothers in 3 months, costing about $2,000. And it was fully AI generated. Every single frame in the movie is AI generated. I will come back to why that actually matters. So I lived through a couple of different technology shifts. My first part of my childhood was pre-internet. It's hard to believe today. But then I became the part of a generation that actually ushered in the iPhone and the smartphone. And these days, I build at the forefront of AI, specifically in healthcare. But what this shift has taught me is that it's almost never the technology that is actually the interesting part, even though that is my background. What is interesting is what that technology, what type of power shift it actually ushers in. And that is actually what I wanted to talk to you about today. So I'm going to talk about one change I see, and one weak signal that I see, and then a little bit about the future that I hope that we choose for ourselves. So let's start where you actually already been a bit. So, I mean, to many of us today, if we hear AI generated content, maybe we cringe a bit. I mean, I know that I do. And of course, if we look at the origin of this vast knowledge that AI and the LLM holds today, if we look at the origin of that, I think it's a bit troubling. Maybe we should say that. And if we look at the flood of low quality content that floods internet, floods social media, floods investors, that is a problem. And yes, jobs are changing. And even some jobs, they are disappearing. But for all of history, access to capital and resources, it decided who could wield power, whose voices actually get heard, whose idea get a chance to be proven. You needed a publisher, you needed a studio, you needed a rich parent, you needed someone who was that vote of confidence before you could even do something. Nobody said yes to Dreams of Violets. Nobody needed to. A story a regime would prefer to never have been told got told anyway. And I think the director put it the best. He said that an AI film about people who actually died, it raises serious questions. But the alternative, silence and forgetting, that is worse. So this is not slop. This is a voice that would never have been raised otherwise. And notice the mechanism, because it actually cuts two ways, right? AI accelerates whatever we attach it to. So if we attach it to noise, that noise gets louder. If we attach it to a story a regime wanted to be silenced, you get Dreams of Violets. Some of you, I guess, are sitting in large organizations, but the reason you sit there is not maybe because you love the organization, it's because until now you needed that to actually get your value out. The doula at the maternity clinic, the psychiatrist, the journalist, the same gate that fell here, it's falling for almost everyone. They didn't need the institution for the mission, they needed it for the machinery. So a large part of that machinery is actually free now. And I mean, this is already happening. And what it means is that the unit of capability, the stuff you talked about already, it's shifting from things that have been gated from inside that institution out to the individual. But underneath that failing gate is also a bigger shift. Some of you recognize it. I mean, it's the work itself that is migrating from people to technology. And this is not about jobs vanishing overnight. This is about small things, tasks that we hand over to technology one by one. But what I've learned about this shift is that it doesn't actually move at the speed of technology, it moves at the speed of trust. So let me give you one weak signal from my area, healthcare. One of the largest studies was more than 8,500 clinicians They were offered an AI scribe from their employer to be used at work. It was fully approved, it was good technology, and it was free. Someone else paid for it. And it makes perfect sense from an efficiency perspective. 79% said no thanks. I mean, most people read that as an adoption, like a failure in adoption, right? But I read it as one of the most important signals in AI right now. Because capability is not the problem, trust is. AI can deliver capabilities in an afternoon, but trust, it still needs to be earned at a human pace. A professional won't trust a tool with important things from their job because a benchmark tells them that they can. They will trust it the same way they trust a colleague. Gradually, by testing it, by seeing how it fails and then understanding what that failure means. No model release will change that. And that hesitation in shifting our work onto technology, it has a history. Last time it happens at scale in my own industry, that was the doctors. At the time, the doctors, they still did the recordings for their notes, right? And then they handed them over to a medical secretary who typed it up for them. And as a saving in someone's spreadsheet, those secretaries were cut. But the work still remained. It was just that the doctors had to do it themselves instead. So it landed on them and it spread into their breaks and their evenings. So what actually happened was that someone else, they decided what work was going to be handed over. And then in the end, someone else kept that surplus. So when professionals hesitate now, it's not that they're being slow, it's just that they're remembering. They distrust technology, they distrust why it was built and why it was distributed. Which is why the labor shift from people to technology, it will not be decided by benchmarks or feature releases or keynotes. It will be decided by millions of small handovers of small tasks, one professional, one task at a time. And there are two fundamental questions that sits inside every one of these decisions. What do we hand over? And who shares the surplus that we actually create? How we answer those two questions, they will fundamentally shape the future for every one of us. The difference I see this time is that the gates are failing. So that means that in many cases, that decision actually can fall to the person who is doing the job. The old gate were permission. They were held by whoever had the money. The new gate is trust. And that's held by the person who hands over the work. Permission, it could be bought. Trust, it needs to be earned. So which future does this actually add up to? Well, I'm a big science fiction fan. And what science fiction have taught me is that dystopia, it's a warning. It's not a forecast. The dark story of our future, I think it writes itself. Jobs lost, voices silenced, the social contract in our society broken, power concentrating to fewer companies, even individuals. But the story of how AI shapes humanity in our future, it is not written yet. It's written by us. And it's written by small decisions and big ones. It's written by our intentions, how we apply our skills, how we spend our time and our money, which products we support. And if we write this story well, the future doesn't look like a faster version of today. It looks like more voices heard, more time spent on the things that matter to us, more people that is actually helped by the skilled few we have, because all of a sudden, a trusted practitioner with trusted tools can help hundreds instead of dozens. Imagine that energy everywhere, in school, in education, in art, in journalism, built anywhere. It's built here, right? For all of human history, opportunity was gated. Someone needed to give you permission to execute on your dreams. We don't have to ask for permission anymore. There are just two things that I ask you for. Be bold and be worthy of our trust. Thank you.